Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Right, so I've been doing all sorts of troubleshooting on the ZX6R to try and get to the problem of why it's not starting, and when it does start it's not running properly. So I've kind of been doing all the usual things: cleaned the carburetors, tested the fuel pump, checked for vacuum leaks, all that kind of thing. Ran it with the top of the airbox off to make sure it's getting plenty of air and things like that. And basically didn't really find the problem. Now this bike, I've had it, I don't know, like a couple of months or something like that, and it was running when I got it, although it wasn't running very well, and I knew it needed a bit of TLC, but I didn't expect it to have any major problems because it's not particularly high mileage. The mileage on it is, as we can see, 35,445, 35,500 miles, which is really not a lot of miles for a modern bike. I've personally known people that have had bikes with over 6 figures on that are still going strong. So I wasn't expecting kind of major engine problems or anything like that, but as I've not been able to find the problem with the fuel system or the air intake or the ignition, I thought that maybe it would be worth doing a compression test. So I got out my compression tester, which you can see here. It's the usual kind of deal. Put a bit of grease on the end, put it into the cylinders. Now I didn't manage to test 1 and 4, or is it 1 and 4? I don't know which way around the numbering goes, but anyway, the ones at the outside I've not managed to test them because I couldn't manage to get it to screw in, and went round and round and round and round and round, and the thread just wouldn't bite. So I basically gave up on them. Excuse me, but I managed to do the 2 middle ones. Excuse me. So this one here, which I'm thinking is probably 3, that gave me a reading initially of 50 psi, around about 50 psi, about there. And this one here, which I think is number 2, somebody might correct me on that, we'll call it number 2 for now. That gave me a reading of about 75, which is about there. That was after turning it over a few times. I used the usual technique of spinning the motor over a few times until the needle got up to a certain point and then stopped. So it's 50 on that one, 75 on that one. So then what I did was I put a bit of oil. At that stage I didn't know what the readings should be, but I knew that that was kind of way lower than it should be. You'd expect it to be over 100, you know. So I put a bit of my engine oil, that stuff that I used for the engine oil change, a couple of weeks ago. I poured some of that into that one, turned it over again, spun it over again, and this time I got about 70, sort of 65, 70, somewhere around about here, on that cylinder. So that's like about maybe 15-20 psi higher than it was without the oil. So what that tells me is basically the rings are probably shot on that piston in that cylinder. I haven't done the oil test on that one. What I did was then I went onto Google and I googled what the compression should be on a ZX6R, and it comes back as 142 to 217. I'm not sure that was the same, referring to the same year, but it's going to be broadly similar. In my experience, most bikes are supposed to have a compression somewhere in the region of about 150, somewhere between probably 150 and 250 psi, something like that. So if you're getting readings of like 50 or 70 psi, then basically the motor's stuffed. So obviously that's not good, and it's really not what you expect on a bike with 35,000 miles on it. So I don't know what's happened to this bike, whether it's been used, whether it's been like abused particularly badly, or whether somebody's put some really rubbish engine oil or totally the wrong engine oil in it. I don't know. I don't know what's happened, but obviously something's happened with the motor, which has stuffed the piston rings. So basically I've got 2 options at this stage. Well, I've got a few different options. One would be rebuild the motor. I don't really fancy doing that because I've rebuilt motors in the past and I know it takes like weeks on end to, by the time you get it out, you get it all apart, buy the parts, wait for the parts to come, fit them, get it back, it's a massive job. And I kind of wanted a bike for the summer, so I'm not massively keen on that option. So another option is get a replacement motor, get a second-hand motor from a breaker's yard, and basically just take that motor out and put the new motor in. And I think that's probably what I'll go for. So I'll have to try and find the motor for it. I don't know how easy that's going to be. I might be open to putting in a motor from a different Kawasaki model. I think a lot of the Kawasaki motors are pretty similar on the outside. It's just like the internals that are different, in which case it might be possible to fit a motor from like a ZX6R or a 636 or whatever, or an older or newer ZX6R. Basically anything that will get it running, I'll put in it. So if anyone knows if Kawasaki motors are interchangeable, that would be really useful. So that's basically it. So we're not going to see this thing running anytime soon, unfortunately. Sorry to disappoint anyone that wanted to see it running, but on the plus side, you may well see some videos about an engine swap. So basically, watch this space. Alright, thanks for watching. See you later. Bye then.